This is Your Mustang Story. In this episode of Your Mustang Story, we return to the National Show in Albuquerque and meet a pair of gentlemen from the northwest part of the United States, each with their own unique Mustang story, although quite different from each other, although they're cousins. While Dr. Jim Joki has the same Mustang since before his med school, Glenn Mayer, a master mechanic, has had several and has been president of his area Mustang Club. But this is the story of two interesting men and the Mustang that brought them together, and what they're up to now on Your Mustang Story. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Jim and Glenn, you're both from the Seattle area?
Correct.
What cities are you from?
Shoreline, north of Seattle.
And I was living in Seattle when I did this conversion, but I don't live there. I live in Graham now.
Now, what is the car that you guys converted?
Well, it's my original 65 honeymoon car.
Oh, it's Jim. So this is your original car.
Yeah.
Holy cats.
It was my honeymoon car, getting married, heading to Houston, Texas with my new job, my new car, and my new wife. Or is it the other way around? My new wife, whatever. But yes, we're on our way to Texas where I was working at NASA.
You were working at NASA. What were you doing at NASA?
I was a flight controller, and I supported and put Neil Armstrong as mud Aldrin on the Mullen.
That was a weekend's work at least.
About 5 years worth of work.
Oh my God. So that's what you did for a living. Glenn, what did you do for a living?
I've been a mechanic for over 55 years. After I got out of the Marine Corps, I went to work for the transit company in Seattle and stayed there for 25 years and then went to work for the Seattle PD.
Now, Glenn, Jim's had a Mustang from his first get-go.
Yeah.
My original one, still
Now,
love it.
but was that your Mustang story beginning?
Well, we actually joined the Mustangs Northwest, and I did that because there's all kinds of information and parts and stuff that's available, or they'll find it. And so that was basically my Mustang. I can have a Mustang of my own for quite a few years.
Yeah. So this Mustang my honeymoon Mustang, we got in Seattle. We know we're going to Houston. So it had air conditioning. We had to pay extra $100 for that, which was under the dash air and tinted windows with it. And the color was a springtime yellow. And I said, but I like the Thunderbird color. And I said, that Phoenician yellow, that'll be another $100. So it cost me $3,200 for my Mustang in 1965. Drove it to Houston, Texas. And after we finished putting the man on the moon, I went back to school, which was a medical school 35 miles away. So 35 miles down, 35 miles. So I put a lot of miles, and it's on the Gulf Coast, that saltwater humidity.
Oh, no.
And about the time I'm ready to finish up school, it was in pretty bad shape, not reliable. So I sold it to another classmate for $100.
Wow.
And I said, you have to, that $100 is the guarantee. You're not going to get rid of it till I want it back.
And this is what year?
Must have been about, 1974.
That you sold it to him for $100?
Yep.
Wow.
So then, getting established a practice up in Seattle. I went to medical school, became an obstetrician, gynecologist, came back to Seattle, did about 6,000 deliveries, and then asked Glenn about going back and getting the car. It was in Arizona somewhere. Called the guy, said I had it, but his kids had been driving it, and tell him what all the damage they did to it. It was rust bucket.
What did you get, Glenn? What came your way to restore?
A rolling wreck, basically. It was in pretty bad shape. Like he said, the Gulf Coast ate up the sheet metal pretty good, and of course they did their
Duct tape.
and
Bondo.
and they bonded up the cowle vent. There was a dryer vent coming out of the right side.
Yeah.
You know,
For the heater.
I objected to get the car was my daughter was getting married in 16 or 18 months. So we talked to Glenn, do you think we can get this car done?
But it's all rusted out.
That's what I said, but we got it back to Seattle, and that's when, go ahead, Glenn.
I originally told him he'd be better off getting another body, but he did not want to do that. You know.
No, my wife.
Okay, well, your wife.
Judy didn't want me to do that.
So anyway, I said, all right.
She didn't want to change the 289 either.
Yeah, she didn't want to change the V8. So anyway, we found a fellow in the town of Snohomish, Washington, to do the paint work and body work on it. I can't remember how long he had it. But
He had to do floor pans, cowl.
Oh, God, you wouldn't believe it. But I'll say this for Jim. He was really helpful. Every time we went up here, he wrote the check.
Nice.
So he gets it back to me, and it's all the body work's done.
How many months did that take?
I don't know. I don't remember.
A lot.
A
I remember we were on the timeline.
Yeah, you were on.
It was you got a total of 14 months. But I think we had 15 or 16 months for my daughter's wedding.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I can hear the clock ticking in my head.
I got it back with the paint work all done. The glass was back in it, and basically it was a shell. So I started working on it. I started putting everything back together. Whatever I put on. If I couldn't buy it new, I rebuilt it. Eventually, the car got back together.
So some of the mods that you did to it, did you do brakes or?
Oh man, I got an '89 Fox Body GT. I took the 5.0 out of that and rebuilt it. The automatic overdrive transmission, I rebuilt it. We put a 9-inch Ford rear end in it with positive traction.
Nice.
And then I started with the factory drum disc brake combination because it originally was all drummed, but I wasn't really happy with it. So we ended up putting Willwood racing brakes on the front.
Wonderful.
And then a few years later, we ended up putting racing brakes on the back. Recently, I think within the last year and a half, I put coilover suspension on the front.
So did you make it in time for the wedding?
I had 2 weeks to spare.
You got it done with 2 weeks to spare?
2 weeks to spare.
Wow.
Yeah, so my son drove it for my daughter and her now husband to the reception and to one of the Sheridans. And my daughter said, well, are we through? Yes. You're not taking it on your honeymoon. He has just married on the back window. It's the only place to let him ride on. Went home, and then both in-laws, we all met him for breakfast. And everybody on the way home was honking the horn. I forgot, I said just married on the back window.
Yeah.
So, I really never really appreciated what this guy did to the car. You know, it's a car. I'm not a car guy. I drive them until he died. Then I called Glenn.
Glenn,
and
what
when
you
I
did.
put the battery in the truck, I said, why is it there? He opened the hood, and I said, yeah, I can see why. Where would you put it, you know? It's a fantastic car to drive. My son, all my grandkids have driven it with me in it. It's reliable, but again, I'm a little uncomfortable to drive it 1,500 miles and then hit it in his car, and then we have to find a part.
So what are your Mustangs now? Do you have a Mustang now, Glenn? Glenn, what's your Mustang?
I have a 2020
What color?
Lucid Red, the EcoBoost high performance 4-cylinder.
Oh, yeah.
We were flying low, coming through those states. It said 80, and it'd creep up to 85, 90. He'd pass the cars how fast? Well over 100.
That's a potent motor.
Yeah.
And what's your current one? Or is
Same
it
thing.
same?
65.
The
I've
65.
got a whole 19,000 miles on it now.
Wow.
After the rebuild.
Wow,
So
that's
take it to the
fantastic.
show. I'm tired of winning either first or second or gold.
Oh, come on.
But they always want, Joki, bring the car that it's Glenn built. And I said,
Yeah.
because he used to be president many times.
Oh, yeah.
So I was obligated. I got to bring the car.
Yeah, we have a couple of those in the Rio Grande Club. Yeah, they're so historic. You got to keep them around.
My goal was to make the car, all the changes I did, as if the factory did it. From the outside, it looks bone stock. But as soon as you open the hood, you realize, we put the battery in the trunk because the air cleaner went over that way. It's funny, people walk up on the car from behind and they see, it's just a standard 289.
Yeah.
Although it does say 302 on it. But then they look at the motor and they go, and you hear them go, whoa.
Whoa.
I don't know how you fit it in there.
So I'm going to say that the wedding was probably your most memorable Mustang story.
Oh, yeah.
I got to tell you, it was
Glenn?
time to put the motor in. Now, Jim being the doctor, he got me a set of scrubs and a mask. And it's like we were doing procedure.
Operation.
We got pictures of it somewhere. But
Oh, nice.
it was kind of funny.
It's wonderful that two cousins collaborate on restoring this car that was your original and made it
For the wedding.
to the daughter's wedding. That is so fantastic. That is awesome. Now, you're both members of what club?
And Mustangs Northwest.
Mustangs Northwest. That's out of Seattle, huh?
Yes.
Tell us about your club. What are some of your favorite activities that the club does on an annual basis?
Well, we do spring and summer, and that's on the day before Mother's Day. It's kind of like the beginning of our show period.
Sure.
And then in July of next month is our roundup. Now, our roundup, I think this is our 41st year for our roundup.
Wow.
We'll get a lot of cars.
Well, tell them what the 4-day events are.
Okay, the 4-day event. First day is our track day. We rent the Pacific Raceways, and for about $350, you can take your counter and race around.
I don't do that with mine.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good, Jim.
And then on Friday is pony trails. Now, Jim and I happen to be the pony trail chairmen this year. So we've got a route that we picked out and everything that we've driven it 3 times already.
Off the main drag, into the mountains and that sort of thing.
Sure.
And on Saturday is the judge show. That's where people in Arden's are bring and get the car judges. Although other people will come too and bring their Mustang. And then on Sunday is the big shoot, and that's where it's people's choice. We also have listings at the locks on Father's Day.
Ballard Locks, Government Lawn.
Yeah.
People asked us to bring the car. And several times during they asked them to bring the car. The kids, like we have Seafair in Seattle, and they'll have parades.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll ask, do you have a couple of convertibles, and they call the club. And so events like that, which we don't know what the dates are, they'll give the president a call and say, you have some Mustangs to put the key in Queen?
Yeah, usually it's the Queen and her
Court.
Yeah. for like Seafair and all the other stuff.
So what's your next event?
The Government Locks has a large arboretum area, and the Government Locks is kind of like Panama Canal. It allows you to go from freshwater Lake Washington to Puget Sound.
The Panama.
It is like the Panama.
Oh, like the Panama.
Like.
The cars are there. They ask us to do that, to bring the cars and the vintage cars, and the hoods are open, and we're there all day. And it's a fun day in the spring. It's beautiful weather. And then
It may be too late for Jim because he's already got his first car and he's still in love with it to this day. But my question is, guys, what advice would you give to someone who's looking to get into Mustangs? What advice would you give them?
This is my 6th Mustang. I started, it was a 97 GT. And most of my Mustangs, all my Mustangs have been red except for one. And then I bought a 96 GT, and then I bought a 73 Grande. That was yellow. And then a 2004 Terminator. And I had a 2015 convertible with the EcoBoost. And now I have this last one.
Nice.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, the car he has now is marvelous. I mean, four-banger, and we were cruising.
I've worked on a lot of Mustangs, the early ones, and some of the later ones. And the reason why I bought a new one is I don't want to have to work on it.
Okay, what advice would you give to a new Mustang owner?
Well, before you buy the car, have it looked over really good by somebody knowledgeable, buyer's check or something like that, to make sure there's nothing wrong with it. And then depending on their budget, get the things that need to get fixed over the years, build it up or whatever. Look at the body real close, at the floors, make sure there's no perforation, and if there is, be ready to pay good money to have it done properly. And that's one of the things I want to say. When you get something done, don't try and jury rig it. Get it done properly. You'll be way ahead. Make sure that the car is safe. Safe and reliable. That's what I always tell them.
Excellent.
Glenn's been a past president of our club many times. While we're down here, we got 2 phone calls from Mustangs and our people in our club that know about him because he tinkers 80 hours a week. That's more than tinkering.
That's more than a tinker.
Yeah, working on the older Mustangs. I mean, that's, I think, his specialty. And I do appreciate that. But that's kind of his hobby. He enjoys that. And like you say, he would like to just enjoy his car now and not have to be out there working on it, right?
Absolutely. Right. They're made to be driven. So there you go.
My wife can drive this one. All the other cars.
And Jim's got to put some miles on his. He only had 19,000 miles on his car.
Well, hey, I don't want, it rains in Seattle in the winter and snow. It's in the garage. But after that, I drive it a lot. When I was working, you'll love this. When I was working at the hospital, I delivered almost everybody there, the faculty. So I'd bring my car and it says, okay to park here. Says, Dr. Joki, it's okay. We'll keep an eye on your car. And if not, I'm not delivering your kids.
There you go.
But in reality, the car has way over 200,000 miles on it.
Originally.
Yeah. And think about it. The 289 was still in it. It had not any major work on it.
But you had a nice 5-liter, so why not, right?
Oh, yeah.
Guys, I want to thank you for being on the show today. This was really great. And we got a taste of what it's like to be a Mustanger up in that part of the world. And that's kind of what this show is about, is to bring folks together through their mutual stories or their unusual stories. And we've got them all on Your Mustang Story.
Well, thanks for having us.
Thanks for being on, guys.
Yep. Then anybody up in that area going to be delighted to work on the car.
Glenn's Garage. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
April 17th, 1964. The birth of the Ford Mustang. 1 year ago, a tremendous success story began with the Tiffany Award for Excellence in Design, followed by the highest award of the Industrial Designers Institute, the Bronze Medal. In design and in performance, Mustang was a winner. Mustang took first and second place in the sports compact class of the Pure Oil Performance Trials. And first and second place in the touring car class of one of the world's toughest road rallies, the Tour de France. But Mustang's success was most impressive here. In its first year, over 417,000 Mustangs were sold, making it the most successful new car introduced in over a generation. Now, year 2 begins with the newest Mustang, the GT, with the distinctive Ford GT stripe. Make this your year to test drive Mustang at your Ford dealers.
In case you missed it, what we just heard is the story of one of the controllers that flew Neil Armstrong to the moon, who turned around and then became an OBGYN and delivered about 6,000 kids, owned the original Mustang he bought before med school, who sold it for $100, then bought it back for the same $100 years later, who got with his cousin to help him restore it before his daughter's wedding so that they could go. You just have to listen to the episode. You see, everybody has a Mustang story. We'd like to hear yours. Reach out to us at contact@yourmustangstory.com. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Your Mustang Story. Your Mustang Story is a presentation of Spirited USA LLC, all rights reserved. The views and opinions expressed on Your Mustang Story are solely those of the participants and do not necessarily represent Spirited USA or its sponsors. Send questions and comments to contact@yourmustangstory.com. And please, spread the word. Like, follow, and subscribe wherever you find us on the web. And thanks. See you next time.